tell me about some of your recent accomplishments.
Sure. So I ran the Boston Marathon this past year in the pouring rain and like 30-mile-an-hour winds in your face for 26 miles. So that was fun. That's probably my most recent like big race that I've done. I've done Boston twice and 5 other marathons now and a bunch of half marathons. And yeah.
Was the Boston Marathon like a goal for you or something you wanted to do?
You know, Boston's really like the quintessential marathon. Like that's what every runner wants to do because you do have to qualify for it, and it has pretty strict qualifying standards.
Okay.
So, you know, that's the big goal. And you get to wear a sweet like Boston Marathon t-shirt and people ask you about it. It's awesome.
Now, do you prep for that? Like,
oh yeah,
really
for
hardcore?
months.
Yeah.
Like it's a solid 4 months of slowly increasing training and doing some really strategic runs. And
I'm curious, what do you eat before a race?
Boston is really unique in that it starts so late in the day. So because the field is like 50,000 people, they do this like rolling wave kind of start. So you just kind of eat like a little bit all day. So it's like bagels and easy stuff like that. So nothing.
You don't have to like carb up or anything
Not
like
really.
that?
It's kind of a misconception that you have like eat pasta the night before or whatever. It's sort of an ongoing thing. Plus I'm like a total carb junkie, so I'm eating carbs like all the time anyway. You know, the biggest fear is always getting injured. So when I'm like training for something big like that, where it's a big trip and, you know, expensive and all that kind of stuff, I'm like wrapping myself in bubble wrap and like not moving and, you know. So, I mean, I think that getting over the fear of some of that happening, because it's always in the back of your head, like, oh my God, my shoulder hurts, my finger hurts, like, is this going to be an injury that's the end of the world and I lost all this money and all this time? So I think that that's like the biggest hurdle to get over when you're preparing, because it is a lot.
Okay. Where'd you place? Do they?
Oh my gosh, like 8,000th or something like that. It's not even like on the radar.
Yeah. Do they put all like the people they expect to have high number? Do they put them out first and then stagger everybody in?
Yeah, so you have to enter a time and then they actually go through and verify that you really did run that time because there's qualifying standards. Okay. And then they base like where you're going to start on that time. So you're put in waves and corrals and all that kind of stuff to get like the faster people out first, and then it slowly works backwards.
Makes sense. Yeah. That way people aren't running over each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you start running? Like in high school or something?
Well, so I started running as training for field hockey, and I went to Warwick and played field hockey in junior high. And I was so bad at field hockey that when we got our varsity, I ran on the varsity track team when I was in 9th grade. And I was so bad at field hockey, they put cross country on my jacket, so I couldn't play field hockey anymore.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was my mom doing that, but it was, they were like, no, just stop, like, go do something else.
Did you end up liking cross country more than?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So after high school, did you go to college and run?
So I actually, I went to Kutztown to run, and I ended up breaking my leg about 2 weeks. I had like 2 stress fractures before going to school. And when I started school, I was in like the crappiest dorm on the 6th floor. It was when you could still smoke. I had a roommate that chain smoked. Wow. Yeah. So it was not a good scene because I was like, I'm supposed to be here to run, and there's like everything wrong that could happen happened. And I hated school, just, you know, for a variety of reasons. Okay. So I ended up not going back after my spring semester and just came home and did like hack and worked and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So after that experience, I kind of lost like my love for running because it was just like, you know, now I was injured and it's hard to get back and you're working and doing other stuff. So it was just kind of like a bummer. Yeah.
Now, running helped pull you out of a place where you were in a bad...
Sure.
So
after I came home, I was in a relationship with somebody, and it was just a really toxic relationship. It was really dealing with a lot of adult issues that at 18 or 19 or 20 years old, you know, you're not prepared to deal with. And I feel like I really lost myself in that time period. And, you know, after that had ended and I started dating my husband now, I really fell back in love with it. And I feel like running was really what pulled me out of that funk and depression. You know what I mean? I think that it really gave me purpose and to see accomplishments like winning a local 5K or, running a marathon. Like that was a big deal because, it was something that I never thought that I could get back.
Okay. Yeah, so running gave you highs and you are experiencing some pretty down lows.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
What were some of the things you were going through that you had to overcome through?
Just being lost, like not feeling like, not that there's anything wrong with not going to college or with working, in the restaurant industry or wherever. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I knew in the long run that really wasn't for me. Like I wanted to go back to school and to, have these accomplishments and goals. And I really think going back into running and being like, wow, that experience really sucked, but I can do these little things, and it just gave me more and more confidence to go on and, get married and have a family and get my degree and then get my master's degree. So I think it was all a catalyst. If I were to have a lesson that I ever wanted to teach anybody, it's, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter like what dumpster fire you're getting through today, just try to develop an attitude where you know that you can turn it around somehow. And, make a plan and stick with it. And I think that you have to really look big picture and say, like, what is happening here and how do I get out of it? And what are the things that I need to get in line to do so? So I think that's what I got.
Make a plan.
Make a plan.
Okay, sounds good.
Get some sticky notes.
That sounds good. So how'd you get back to school? What college did you go to?
So actually when our first son was born, I was working night shift at the hospital, and I hated it, and it was not fun having a baby and then trying to work all night and then take care of them the next day. I just kind of had this realization when he turned 2. I was like, this is so stupid. Like, you have 2 years of school to go. Like, why are you not finishing this? So I ended up re-enrolling at Hack and did some more just like basic classes that I needed. And I ended up going to Millersville for about a little over a year and got my bachelor's degree. And then we had our second kid, and I started my master's degree that January. When I was doing my psychology undergrad, I knew that I wanted to get this master's degree in the sports management. And I was like, okay, how can I do a project that's going to tie in both things? So I coached one of the girls on the run teams, or I guess it was girls on track. So it was the older girls, like sixth graders, I think, at Central Manor. And I ended up writing my thesis for my undergrad about, the positive effects that sports can have on young women.
So does that tie into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you doing now?
So I'm the director of the Lidditz Rec Rock climbing facility.
Oh, okay.
So I manage that place and all the employees. And
are you a good rock climber?
No. I'm a very poor rock climber, very bad. So I can get like halfway up the wall and then I'm like, it's too high. So no, I try, but not well.
Stick to the running, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So what are your goals coming up as a runner? What do you want to do next?
I'll run the Rehoboth Half Marathon.
Okay.
I missed placing my age group by like 4 seconds last year, so that's one of the big goals right now. And then to run Boston again eventually. And
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I think long term, I'd like to do at least a half Ironman, if not a full Ironman marathon.
Looking back at your life, do you have advice that you could give people that you think might be in a situation like your?
Yeah.
Like you said, you were in an abusive relationship.
Yeah,
right?
it was very toxic. And I think that people, you have to find something that gives you worth and makes you want to wake up every day. And if that's knitting or running or, whatever it is, I think that you need to find that and, really stick with it. Like no matter what else is going on in your life, you have to find something that's a constant.
How hard was it for you to pick it back up again?
It was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was used to, in high school running 5Ks or whatever, and then to come back and be like, oh my God, I can only run down the block. It's difficult. It's really hard. So, you really just have to stick with it and make a plan and say, like, every day I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Is there something that drove you to do that, or like something you used personally?
I think that just very shortly into getting back into running and sports and stuff, I think that just seeing the progress, like, within a week I could do this. Within 2 weeks, I could do this. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to set a goal to run a half marathon. Or, you know, I'm a very goal-oriented person.
Okay.
Like, that's what really gets my juices flowing, is to like pick something and really work towards it. And I think that, you know, with me personally and other people that I've seen struggling with dealing with either some depression or some other issues, like picking something like that that's really meaningful, I think is really helpful.
Did you struggle with depression?
I think so. I wasn't ever like diagnosed with anything, but you know, I think that when you go through crappy stuff, like, you know, it's a hard time. And again, you know, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you know, you're not prepared to deal with something, like you're not ready to deal with adult problems that, you know, you might have to.
So tell me about your typical day. What do you do at the Rec Rock?
You know, I do a little bit of everything up here. I work behind the front desk. I do the really boring stuff like budgeting and, you know, that kind of stuff, and just a whole myriad of different things.
So how much do you run a day?
It kind of depends.
Okay.
It's really hard to say, because some days, like today I ran 4 miles, but yesterday I ran 8, and then tomorrow I'll run like 5. In a training cycle, like if I was running Boston again, it would probably peak at about 50 miles a week.
Okay.
But usually it's more like 35. Yeah, which can still be a lot.
Looking back at your high school career, what are some of the things that you could pass on to students who are thinking, you know, maybe I would like to run the marathon?
Yeah.
Or something?
I think it's ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
So I ran my first marathon, I ran Philly, right after my son was born. It was completely unprepared for it, and it was miserable. And my husband has this video of me coming across the finish line. He's like, "That's so great, you won." I'm like, "I hate you and I want to go home." So I think it's, you know, really prepare and research and put a goal in place and make a roadmap of how to get there.
Okay. And you said ask questions. Like, what are some of the questions that you found?
So, you know, when you want to do something like run a marathon or get a college degree, you have to think like, okay, so what's my plan going to be and how do I get there? So, you know, I did a lot of research, like what are the best shoes to buy? Like, you know, what are different stretching exercises? How can I do foam rolling more efficiently? So asking those questions and developing a comprehensive plan rather than just like, I'm going to go run all the miles all the time. So I think that's really necessary. And, you know, I think writing out a plan and sticking with it is really key for me. Like every time I'm training for something, I get a calendar and actually like write down what I'm supposed to do every day.